This is DJ Head. Another good panel for you guys. These dudes are prospective legends in their fields. Y'all give it up for KQuick and the homie Mez. All right. Welcome back. You guys are no strangers to engineer. Make sure your mic is on, bro. Okay, we good. Check it. All right, cool. Y'all can hear him? All right, for sure. So I guess we'll start with you quick. Just give a quick blurb for the people who don't know who you are, where you hail from, and what your specialty is.
Cool. Yeah, I go by KQuick. I'm a music producer and an engineer. I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts, but I've been living in New York for a while, since about 2006. And so I specialize in music production, songwriting, engineering, mixing, pretty much across the board.
Mez?
My name is Juro Mez Davis. I'm most well known for all J. Cole's albums. I mix them. And,
Light Flex.
I mixed a lot of Dreamville stuff and, a lot of random stuff and a lot of Atmos stuff nowadays.
That was the most modest intro blurb ever. Well, a lot of J. Cole shit, just a couple platinum out, whatever. Anyway, I guess we'll start with you quick as far as from an engineering standpoint. I mean, you got your other slashes that you dive into, but I want to dive into the engineer bag real quick because most people here are watching our engineers on the stream and also here with us. From an engineering standpoint, what made you want to get your start into it? Was it by necessity? Did you go to school for it? With that?
Yeah, it was a little bit of both. So I went to the Clive Davis Institute at New York University. So I got a pretty well-rounded training in the studio engineering production, but there was a heavy focus that I took a liking to on the engineering side, on the tracking side, on the mixing side, but also out of necessity from just making beats in my bedroom on Fruity Loops FL3 at the time.
Damn.
And just throwback, and just trying to figure out all right, why don't my beats slap the way other people's do, and diving into the technical aspects of how to get my sonics to where I wanted them to be. And then when it came to working with other artists, that's where I truly developed that in a big way, tracking artists and trying to craft the ideas they had and bringing them to light was when I dove in heavily to the craft of engineering and trying to figure out what all that meant and how to achieve that.
Did you have any early mentors? Because I know you went to school for it, but I wanted you to speak to the importance of mentorship or even getting in the rooms.
Yeah, mentorship was huge for me. So when I was going to school and graduating, I would work a lot. Rockweiler was one of my mentors.
Light Flex.
Yeah. Just writing hooks over his beats and engineering stuff for him. Ryan Leslie was a huge mentor for me when I first moved. He actually gave me, I had a bit of an apprenticeship over a summer. It was 3 months, 14 hours a day in the studio every day. I would show up early and put together drum loops and different ideas and stuff like that. Then he would come in, anything he liked, he would work on it, he would mix it, rearrange it, add more stuff. And my first placements, first Grammy nomination came from that mentorship in that summer. So that changed the trajectory of my career. Mentorship is huge.
How did you end up getting that though? What's the process? Because a lot of people don't have access to Ryan Leslie. So how did you get from the school to the studio with them?
Yeah, I mean, some of that was from where I grew up in Boston. My family knew his family and would kind of mentored him in the church. And so when I was getting older and going to school, my father was like, listen, there's this guy, Ryan Leslie. And this was when Ryan was taking off on his YouTube channel, saying hey, just go play him some music, see what he thinks. And we played the music for him. And I mean, he tore it apart.
It was trash?
It was trash. It was trash. It was very trash. And then a couple years later, I reapproached it. Hey, I've grown since then. This is what we have now. And I think that's what mentorship is good for, is pointing out your flaws, but not in a way to demoralize you, just in a way to encourage you, and so that you can come back stronger.
But I think that's dope to have that tenacity. Some people get deflated and give up, you know what I mean? But you use it as fuel. That's dope. Mez, we don't even need to go back down the wormhole of your origin story. Everybody here is pretty much familiar with it. But just me personally, for years, and I don't know, maybe you could speak to this. For years, literally, I was under the impression, and a lot of people were, that, oh, Cole does everything himself. He makes his own beats, he records himself, he mixes himself. Like, you've always been there, like, but I'm just saying, like, are you cool with that? I don't even know what the question is, but can you just speak to that?
I know what you're saying. I don't promote much. I don't tout it much. I'm cool with it. I don't really care if people know or not, but the people that know, you just gotta look, you just gotta look into it. And I understand why. I'm not around, J. Cole being on the Mount Rushmore of new hip hop, let's call it what it is, and you being right there, being the person kind of crafting that sound, do you feel kind of like, are you attached to the music as he is? Because I know he takes his music very personally. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And the reason why is, I've been there since the beginning. I actually even did the come up with him. Like, I don't know how many people know about the come up. I'm sure people do now. Okay, cool. Yeah, but it's kind of obscure. So, like, since the very beginning, very first recording session in a real studio he ever did was with me, and then we just stuck together from there. So he is a lifelong friend, and I'm very invested in the music. I've, sat there and taught him, like how to record and vocal stuff and stuff like that, that an engineer does with an artist. So we've worked very hand in hand, and yeah, it's made me very, like, invested in the whole thing. And not just even the mixing side, if something ain't right, you should get rid of this song. Oh, this production ain't up to par. We need to add stuff. I'll give those type of notes for him. And even if I am recording them, which I don't do much anymore, I'm very involved in it. Like, yeah, you could do this line better.
Right.
I don't like.
What song have you gave Cole some vocal coaching on that we ended up hearing? Like, is it?
Oh. Early days, it was a lot of stuff like even what to stack and stuff like that. And like, I think there could be harmonies under this part. And
Do you remember
like
any specific song?
The last one I think of was like the JID song, Get Off My Dick.
Yeah.
Right? Because that was a very complicated verse that we had to go in, and I had to give the certainty of like, nah, that line's good. Nah, that line's good. All right, we got to punch this line. We got to do this line, because that shit was. And if you hear that shit is like on time. Yeah. It's in a pocket.
It's damn near wrapped on grid. Like,
right. We made sure that shit was right.
Okay. Another question about that is, you spoke to the come up, right? And Cole has been vocal about getting these songs, these old projects on the streaming services, right? Is there anything about the mixing process that you would change or differentiate from what the work you did going back and listening to it before it goes up?
Yeah, but that's really any album. Even the last album or the one before, you're always kind of like, I would have did that different now, So, man, I haven't listened to Come Up in quite some time.
Well, if you
can't imagine the things I would change on.
Do you critique your work like that, though? Do you go back and listen
yeah.
Fuck, I wish I would have.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, when you listen. Sometimes I don't like listening to my old work because of that. Because it's like sometimes I can't enjoy it because it's like, this could have been better.
Okay. Quick, J. Cole, Boss, Alessia Cara, I want you to talk about working in different genres. We have people from international, all over the world. Afro beats, we've had UK, we've had drill, we've had R&B. What's your take on mixing and working with different genres of music? Is it the same process? Is there a completely different workflow? Is it different EQs? Is it different? Like, what do you?
I would say the philosophy behind it doesn't change for me. It's more so me staying true to that genre and doing my research on one, trusting my instinct, but also doing my research to make sure that it can live in that world, whatever world it's living in. So I feel like the mentality of it though is the same approach I would take to any song. Like, what is the best thing for this song in this moment, for this vocal, for this track? Like, I wouldn't mix, an Alessia Cara song like I would a rap song, unless
what's
it needed
the difference?
that.
What's the difference though?
I would say the difference it comes down as to where is this song gonna live? Is this song for radio? Is this song for tour? Is this song for streaming? In terms of the sonics, and if I play an Alessia Cara song next to a Taylor Swift song, will they live in the same space?
Right.
Should they live in the same space, or does this song need to be more aggressive or something like that? So that's why I say it's song by song, because even different songs on the album might need a different taste, a different flavor that might take that artist out of their comfort zone, but it might be something that serves that song well.
So do you, in a sense, treat where the record is going to live differently than? I mean, is that something that you take into consideration before you even touch the mix? Or is that something, because we're having other engineers talk about different, like a record sounds different on Spotify than it does on YouTube. And on the radio, it sounds different than it does on Apple Music. So are you taking that into consideration as far as how you're approaching the record, where it's going to live?
I think that consideration is a bit more heavily in the mastering process. In terms of the final product, but in the mixing process, it depends on the direction of the producer and the artist. To be honest, like, some want things pushed more because they're more of a streaming artist, let's say, than they are of a touring artist, or they're more of a certain type of artist. So when they listen to their music in that context, that might direct how they like their music to sound. But so I take the direction of the artist in terms of those decisions. Less me saying, oh, I think it should sound this way. They take my direction and my instinct, but at the end of the day, it's their art. So if they have an influence on that, or if they have a specific process to that, then I try to stay true to that.
Word. Mez, I want to talk about the classic for me, for us, for the culture. Forest Hills Drive is, to me, it's still the best one. I mean, no disrespect. I like their other shit. It's not fucking with that. That's my humble opinion.
It's my number 2.
What's your first one?
I actually like Friday Night Lights the best.
Okay, all right, that's fair. That's fair. If you would have said something newer, then but anyway, my humble opinion. But when crafting the sound of Forest Hills Drive, I feel like that's one of those barometers, a modern day barometer, right? So we were just talking to Urko earlier, and Urko was talking about Doggy Style. For, if you go back as far as a legacy project, I feel like Doggy Style is probably the best mixed album, like it's a cohesive body of work, right?
Yeah.
And then when I listen to Forest Hills Drive, I get the same feeling from that. From a sonic standpoint, not necessarily. It's not Snoop, it's not lyric,
right?
But from a sonic standpoint, I want to talk about the crafting of that cohesive body of work and weaving that sound wise.
That's pretty general, but
no, I'm saying was it intentional, or is it something that's just a feeling and emotion?
Everything's intentional. Was it meant to be? Like, did I have a particular mind state going into it? Not really, but it was, at the time, you have a particular mind state, like every project, so projects sound different over time. So yeah, I mean, that's all I could say to it. I'm not it'd have to be specific on a song, or
fuck the songs, the whole project.
Yeah.
When you go in to mix a project like that, was it piece by piece? Was it done before you started mixing?
It was over time. Even the way we work, sometimes I'll do a mix, and then we'll change tons of shit on it. Like we might even, and I don't mean in the mix, like
change the song.
Yeah.
Oh,
a bunch more production might get done because we work hand in hand, and even sometimes the mix brings out stuff that you now hear, like, oh, we need more, or we should add this. It brings out more creative ideas, adds excitement to it, and you get more ideas. So it was over a good amount of time.
Okay, I'll ask you a specific
but finalization was very much like, you know, you're going through every record again to make sure they're kind of cohesive.
I have a specific nerd
Right.
question I would like to ask that I never asked you before. On Get Off My Dick, right? That's one of my favorite songs. At the end, when where there's just the drum part, you know what I'm talking about? Where it's just the drums and there's playing and shit like that.
Yeah.
I hear
The switch up.
Yeah.
Where it switch up.
Yeah,
Okay,
where the
yeah.
beat switched up, right? So I hear the 808,
Yeah.
but there's no kick.
Yeah.
And then I hear the snare, like
Yeah.
that's offsetting. So I just kind of want to know how that was done. If
Damn, that is hard to remember.
I'm just saying you wanted to answer
Yeah.
a real. That's a nerd question I always wanted to ask. But
I do remember at the end I added more saturation overall, right? Like from the beginning to the end, that was like the vibe I wanted to get of the ending. I don't remember the kick 808 thing though. Like I don't even remember if there was no kick or we pushed it way down or what.
that's what I wanted to know
Right.
because I can't. I feel the kick. I don't hear
Right,
it, and I don't
right.
know if that makes sense.
Right. There might have been no kick. I'd have to look. But and then like recalling that, I do remember at the beginning half, so I'm wondering if I did it at the end half, we smashed it into a limiter. Like that 808 that's growling at the beginning is just the 808 like smashed into an L1 like a ridiculous amount.
When you say smash, what was done to it?
Like it's just the L1 was pulled down to ridiculous levels until it was distorting, and then I think there's a kick on top that was added on top of that.
Who thinks like that? Like, is that a call? You call?
It was actually a cold call. It was actually like just pull it down more, just pull it down more, and then it started distorting. He liked it, you know.
You guys are insane. All right, quick. Mariah Carey, Boys to Men. I want to talk about your approach, like when it comes to mixing like legacy artists versus like new shit. Because from my understanding, I'm not an engineer like that, but from my understanding, you have to approach R&B differently. It takes you can't smash the kicks to the distorted. You can't. It can't be boom boom. It can't be pumping like that. What's your approach to that?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question because with those artists in particular, it was me mixing in the new Atmos format. So taking those legendary projects, the Emancipation of Mimi album and the Boyz II Men Greatest Hits, and remixing them into Atmos. But for those albums in particular, they didn't have the mix stems. They only had the original multi-tracks. So I had to mix it again in stereo first. So I feel like I had to do research to see. All right, what boards were they usually mixing on? Okay, I'll use plugins more in that vein. How did they usually like their reverbs? Okay, they use the Lexicon reverb a lot. In
Okay,
those songs.
wait. I don't want to cut you off. I want you to keep going, but I want you to dive into that because you're saying before you would even mix it, you had to go back and figure out what the original was remixed or recorded in, or both.
As much research as I could find, to be honest, because I wanted to keep the essence of that song because it's classic songs that everyone knows, right? So I didn't want it to be that now you hear it in this new format and it doesn't sound like what the song you know. So because we didn't have the mix stems and I had to remix it again in stereo first, I wanted to do research to see the type of tools they used in that era to kind of get to that point quicker or more authentically. So I would research the types of reverbs they use, the types of EQs, things like that, and then try things out. That was my starting point. At least I wasn't just shooting in the dark with, newer tools and newer processing that didn't give the vibe of those records.
That's insane. So, damn, that's crazy. So so if they don't have the session, they didn't have the original session. They just had a session. Is that what you're saying?
They had the raw files from when they recorded it.
They don't have any
mixed
effects on it or anything.
Exactly, yeah.
So you had just raw.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you mix the let's say Boyz II Men, right? When you take the Boyz II Men raw vocals and you mix it in stereo, you're trying your best to mimic.
To match the original before
to match
I pull
the
it into
original
the Atmos
master.
format. Exactly.
Okay, so once you match the original master, you didn't have to deconstruct your work to mix in the Atmos.
Exactly. Yeah.
Jesus. Okay, can you walk us through that? Like taking a stereo track and then turning it into Atmos?
Yeah, I mean, well, once we remixed it again in stereo, we were able to then make stems from that, and then start pulling into the Atmos, format. Panning things, putting things in a different spatial, immersive format, the way we would if we got the original mix stems.
When did you first get acquainted or start implementing Atmos into your workflow? Because early adopters usually win in technology and technological advances. The earlier you are, usually the better it pays off, except with Dogecoin. But
don't say that yet, bro. That'll hurt me.
But I'm just saying, from a technological standpoint, when did you first start to embrace Atmos as a platform?
I would say, because honestly, Mez got me into it. Was it 2 years ago now, or a year and a half at least? Yeah,
it was
almost
at
2
least
years
two.
ago.
I think
Yeah.
it was at least 2. Yeah.
Yeah, about 2 years ago, Mez put me on, and I looked into it, and I did the Avid program that they had at the time, and now there's an amazing, EngineEars program that you can do.
Yeah.
That I was able to help with. So it was about 2 years ago now, like summertime, that I started messing with it and diving into it. And some of the first projects was Mez pulling me in on the J. Cole catalog in Atmos. So that was, early days.
Mez, when did you get put on the Atmos?
Actually, a friend of mine, Rich, put me on. Who they built a studio in New York, which is where we were working out of, where he did the Boys to Men and all that stuff, right? And he was just, it's a Universal studio, so they just were like, this is the new thing, you got to get on it. Everybody wants it. And I was like, all right. Cool.
He was like, all right, I'll try it.
Yeah, I think then it came down like, oh, they want J. Cole and Atmos. And that's when I was serious, because then I was like, oh, I gotta do all this shit in Atmos. And then I hit him up. He was already signed up for the course because we were already talking about it. And I'm like, all right, you gotta help me because I don't know what to do.
So how do you approach learning a new format like that? Do you just kind of like figure you learn on the job, or is it did you have a Atmos like sensei, or
you read? I mean, I even learned Pro Tools like in the beginning off reading the manual. So you just start reading the stuff they have, and then you get the stuff and you start messing around with what it is. If you're already acquainted with one program, you kind of it's not too hard to figure out.
Yeah. Back cataloging. So you said they wanted the J. Cole catalog in Atmos, right?
Yeah.
So how long is that process?
It took a while. It would be a lot faster now. But, we were just figuring it out. So it took, how long did it take? Months?
Yeah, I would say so.
Couple months, yeah. But like I said, we were just figuring it out. So, we ain't want to fuck it up.
Yeah.
But now we could probably do that shit in, 2 weeks or something.
The whole catalog?
I think so. Because we know what we're doing now.
Damn.
Yeah.
I want to go back to quick about something you talked about. How you broke that down as far as creating you created your own master essentially, right? And then does the song that we all know and love and hear, does that get replaced with your recreated master, or is it just you just use that as a reference?
The new stereo master
Yes.
doesn't get replaced, at least not to my knowledge.
Okay.
I think we just had to do that in order to do the Atmos, because we didn't want to cheat the Atmos version, if that makes sense. But I don't think it was a new release of the stereo version, not to my knowledge at least.
Okay. And then also the question everybody has as far as mixing 2-track. Not saying you do it now, but I'm pretty sure you have done it. What's your approach to mixing a 2-track if they don't have the session, they don't have the stems?
Yeah, I mean, that's a journey that it's a wild journey that we took, and with everybody at the Republic Studio and all the assistants there, just like trying every single source separation plugin there is. I mean, we tried a lot of different things. Isotope is one of the best ones that we've kind of used currently
For source separation?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's not ideal in any sense, you know what I mean, to only have the master, but we're able to do things now that sound immersive and still stay true to the original version of the song. But yeah, isotope, music rebalance, and then just using our ears and trying things and seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work, going too far to see how to pull it back. You know what I mean? Just it was a lot of trial and error for sure.
Okay. Mez, I want to talk about the differentiations in dealing with different vocal chains, because Cole does melody, but he also rap like a motherfucker. Do you treat those vocals differently in your mix, or what's your approach to that?
Not necessarily. I mean, if it's going from rapping to singing, yeah, I do. I separate them and I do stuff different. I EQ it different, and you might have to compress it more or compress it less depending on what it is. Add a little extra reverb, maybe for the singing parts, or a little spatialization like a doubler. You do want it to be a different thing. It could stay the same chain, and it's not going to sound bad. It's just not, if you're going from one thing to the next in a mix, you want to make stuff exciting as possible. So anytime you have a different section and you get the opportunity for this to be different than the last thing, you want to do it.
So you still kind of just experiment and play with it?
Yeah, I experiment, but for the most part, like doublers and more reverb, is the main thing to like different parts, for especially rapping to singing. It's usually a little more reverb, maybe extra delay, maybe extra effects like that.
You keep reverb. Which reverb do you prefer? What delays you like? What?
I've been through a lot of reverbs. I have a bunch of them. So I mean, Cole loves Valhalla, right? I'm off it, but mostly because I'm just anti that. Everybody's using that shit at this point. I've recently gotten into the Isotope has one called Stratus and Symphony, which I love, and I realized I used the Lexicon for a long time, different Lexicon reverbs, and I didn't realize, but a guy from Lexicon made those, right? So that's why I like them so much. So I've been doing those a lot. They're very wide, so I like that about them.
And compressors?
Compressors, it changes. Like plug-in wise, I use the L-Ray a lot, which is acoustic audio, which makes things real fat. 1176 is just a common go-to. It's a very simple and well-known compressor plug-in and compressor sound for vocals. I like the Tube Tech a lot, but that's mostly on the way in. What else? Fairchild. I use the Fairchild a lot. That's the main ones.
Quick, you got something you want to?
Yeah, I mean the Fairchild. I will try the Fairchild on everything. I'll just try it just to see if it gives me what I want.
That's like people who put barbecue sauce on everything.
Yeah. I just love it. The R compressor I use a lot. I use a ton. It's really flexible. 1176. I used to use the LA2A a lot, but I think I replaced that with the Fairchild more, just because there's a little bit more flexibility with the release time. What else? I do a lot of multi-band, so Fab Filter MB I use a ton, sometimes as an EQ or as a multi-band compressor. I guess those are some go-tos.
I want to talk, either one of y'all speaking to working on the road. A lot of people don't have access to the big rooms with the SSLs. We talk a lot about mixing in the box, outboard gear, headphone mixing, tracking in inopportune areas, tracking on the back of a tour bus, recording an artist in a hotel room. Can you guys speak to what gear you might use on the road or, in a backpack?
Yeah, I mean, I do a ton of that sometimes. Like, I was able to come out during some of that Forest Hills Drive tour and record Cole. I mean, at that point, he had the recording bus, which was fire. But then there's sometimes we would record backstage or something like that. These days, the SM7B will save your life in a horrible sounding room. Especially for, I mean, sometimes they end up on the record too. To be honest, those demo vocals. SM7B, a little Apollo Twin, and my Satellite. I've just gotten, like, when you're on the road, you have to get good at building your template, because regardless if it's going to change, artists, when they have that idea, they want to just be able to jump in and not have you fiddling around like trying out compressors and trying out EQs and stuff. You want to have at least something that you know will get you a good starting point. So building my kind of on the road, my mobile template, if you will, was paramount in being able to be efficient in those environments where like I might not know the room, I might not know the environment I'm in. So, headphones, some Audio Technicas so that the bleed doesn't, there's less bleed if you're both in the same room next to each other, small things like that.
Mez?
I hate on the road vocals. But I will say they have gotten used a lot, and then they're often difficult to work with. Like KOD had a lot of on the road vocals, but just to speak to the mixing of them, it's like you end up finding a way to make them work, or make whatever's wrong with them work. That was a lot of SM7B on that on KOD, which does help with room noise, but it's still not. It's not great. It's not like
fidelity
being in the studio. Yeah, but when you mix it, it might take a while, but you end up finding a way to do it, and sometimes it's better because those things that are weird pulled something out of it, that you wouldn't have done before,
Shout out to the Shure SM7B. That's my go-to. Okay, cool. As far as like, you didn't speak about it, but analog in the box, how you guys feel?
Yeah, I mean, I'm majority in the box, to be honest. If I'm in a studio that's like super equipped, I like to track with as much analog injection, I call it, as I can. And then from that point on, I could be in the box. But while I'm mixing, I'm rarely analog, unless I might run things through a summing mixer, like the Neve Orbit I use at my spot. I might do that, but you have to be careful with that, especially these days with the speed of turnarounds, sometimes asked of you, and recalls and revisions. You have to be tasteful with like what you use outside of the box, because like, let's say the deadline is tomorrow and they need you to make one small tweak on every song, and you have analog gear on every song, you might not be able to meet that deadline. So you have to be